Hello and welcome to another episode of Out of Zoo. Today, my very good friend Pratik Nahata, who is one of the co-founder of Aeroprise, is with me. I've known him for, well, way too long, at least 7 years or so. And together, he and I and many good other men built what became BMC Mobility, the ITSM apps that you're using for service desk and approval apps. I want to welcome Pratik today. So great to have you here all the way from Bangalore, or as they say now, Bangalore.
Thanks, Al.
Great. You've been doing this from the day you graduated Stanford. You've been involved in building business apps, and this is before there were real cool phones. There was no smartphones, there was no iPhone, there was nothing. And so you've been through quite a lot. Can you share with the viewers what you've learned, what this has been like? What was those few years in the beginning especially like? And where are we now?
Absolutely. So, it's been a decade of wonderful memories. Alp, I think I feel privileged being a part of Aeroprise. I think we were probably a part of history when it comes to mobile application development.
You think so?
Absolutely.
How come?
And it's now live on the Zoo, right? On Alpha Zoo. So
Yeah.
I still remember back in those early days, we had those kludgy black and white WAP phones, the Motorola WAP phones, the BlackBerry pagers, 857s and 957s. There was no 3G, no 2G. It was probably just a quarter G.
Yeah.
I remember the first WAP deck that I created, I got a compile error because I had exceeded 1504 bytes. Fast forward to now, with iPhone 5 and Galaxy S4s, you have 64 GB of memory. It's ridiculous the amount of computing power these phones have. They probably have more power than some of the PCs back in those days.
Yeah.
One thing that I feel that really hasn't changed is user expectation and mindset. 10 years back, people expected their desktops to be on their mobile phones, and even now they expect the same. Truly tragic.
Yes.
I think mobility is about getting 20 to 30% of your use cases, which you use 90% of the times. Mobile apps are not about replacing your desktops. They're just adding to the power you already have.
Why is it? Why do you think people? Because I agree with you on that. Why is it so hard to get folks to grab that this is not a smaller version on your computer? Is it just we slow on the uptake, or is there another fundamental reason? Because that is a key aspect to building mobile apps. Is you only have to find the 10%, and that's really, really, really hard to do. Why is that the problem, that people just don't know what those 10% that you need to take to the field is? Where's the obstacle there?
I think it's just a mindset. You think, hey, I paid, whatever, $700, $800 for my phone. It's the same as the laptop. Now, give me my laptop on my phone. I somehow feel there's one mindset in that direction. And the second mindset is, I'm going to use my phone all the time, so I don't use my desktop. So that doesn't really work. What really you need to figure out is, as a phone with a small real estate, what are the things that I do most of the times?
Yeah.
I'm not typing tons of characters on my phone. I want to do my simple buttons, menus, those simple actions which I'm using most of the times.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to identify those key aspects of what you use, and you can do quickly and easily on a phone. Then try to figure out how do I type these long, diary fields or character fields of information.
Yes, it does. And so what would be a quick tip for someone who's thinking about, I have a service desk, might have a little bit of change, not necessarily super integrated, but it's there somewhere. Where do I start? How do I get going with mobility? I have it as an initiative in my organization, and I want it to be successful, and I want it to be quick and not very costly. What type of tips can you give such an individual?
Excellent question, Alf. I think in terms of service desk, what are the key things as a technician you need to do? You need to be able to assign a ticket to yourself or someone else in your group. First key thing. You need to be able to change the statuses in process, pending, put in the reason why it's something is pending. Definitely you need the work log or the work notes. I think those are some business rules that a lot of organizations have, that anytime you're changing a status, you need to add in information about work notes. So those are important fields. I know you got to do a little typing there, but you really cannot avoid it. The categorizations for the incident, when it comes in, it may be wrong. You might want to change that, and then be able to resolve and close a ticket and make sure you can maintain those SLAs, because those are the keys. What mobility brings to the table is you being able to manage your SLAs really well.
How is that? How is that compared to how things are today? What's the specific benefits?
Without using a mobile device, or carrying your laptop along with you when you're doing your work. I mean, carrying a laptop doesn't really scale. So if you're working on a ticket, in a basement, and you need to figure out how to update the information, the easiest way to do would be use your mobile phone.
Rather than coming back to the office.
I can't borrow your PC, which I'm trying to fix, because it's already broken.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then so that's one big part of it. The other part of it is we see a lot of questions about is the whole change, or the approval access, not so much the change request, but the change approval side.
Absolutely.
We have, it was one customer turned it from, instead of waiting 3 days to get an approval on any change request, it now takes, I think, 3 hours is the SLA they set.
Yep.
And it all because they have phones, and it sounds, that doesn't sound right. Why couldn't they have been more proactive? What is it that changes culturally or behaviorally or psychologically in using change approval as an example, for example? As you as a manager, how come you now are so quick? Is it because you have access? Because you could argue that I could always go back to my desk, or I could always have a proxy filling in. There are other solutions other than a cell phone. But when the approval popped up on the mobile phone, things seems to move faster. Why is that?
I think as a manager, you'd be spending most of your time in meetings. You're really not at your desk.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. The other thing, where you talk about proxy, it doesn't really work great. I'm pushing my job. I shouldn't be doing that. Having these apps on my mobile device gives me the power to read all the pertinent information, which I, as a manager, know exactly what to do. I mean, I can't reassign it to you, Alf, and say, Alf, critical coding issue, fix it. No way. I got to take responsibility for what I'm responsible for and approve it. Just get the change approval app.
Yeah, yeah. You work with hundreds of customers out there who tried this and understand the vision of and the benefits of mobility. And things doesn't always go very smooth, especially when you don't know what you do. So what are the most common mistakes, and what can we learn from them?
Most people who are not using the out-of-box applications have never designed their applications for mobility. Most of them have so much business logic embedded in their applications that porting it to a mobile device becomes a little tricky. The workflow they write on the fields, I'd say it's a combination of poorly architected versus someone who's just trying to put in just way too much client-side workflow. So one of the common problems in a homegrown application is the business logic poorly architected for a mobile flow. The out-of-box applications do a great job. They make life easy on trying to mobilize your application. So one is out-of-box versus homegrown. So that's one challenge we always face.
Or at least try to keep it as simple as possible, right? Rather than try to care. It's the same thing of trying to find the 10% of the app that you need to take on the road. You need the 10% of the logic as well, which is really tricky because you can't just take 10% out. and port that, right? It's all interconnected.
True. I think to some extent, we should give credit that some of these folks are really not following ITIL processes very carefully. It's possible that just they're overcomplicating the application. I mean, Remedy gives you the power to make things, and so you can make it easy or you can make it really tricky. If I'm a consultant, working for a company and building their app, I'd make it really hard so that they don't fire me. So when you try to mobilize this app, you're in deep doo-doo. And so I say, hey, stick to the out-of-box stuff. It's designed right. It can be mobilized right. So that's one challenge. The second challenge, as I already talked about, is and we said the 10%. What do you really need? It gets a little cloudy to figure out what is that important 10% that needs to get onto your mobile device. The final challenge is, thank you BYOD, people have all sorts of devices. I mean, they have iPhones and they have Blackberries. We still have customers using like those trackball Blackberries with 4.7 operating systems. I mean, those are ancient, obsolete devices. And you have to support this magnitude of device options, which is extremely hard. So you got to put your foot down and say, guys, we're drawing a line. We support blah, blah, blah. That's it. So if you want to use mobility, buy a new phone.
What are the predominant devices right now? Android, iPhone. Is there a third one? Is BlackBerry still viable in the market?
Blackberries are still, again, I think it depends on the geography. I think the US is predominantly iOS. Most government bank organizations are still stuck to Blackberries. The Asia region, Europe, is catching on to Android, simply because you have a lot cheaper options. The funny thing is, till a couple months back, I wouldn't hear people talking about Windows Mobile 8. And now there's this huge surge of organizations just saying, we need Windows Mobile 8 support. So it's crazy. You really cannot plan something in this day and age because things change so fast. It's like
yes,
law,
I remember at Aeroprise, my standard answer used to be, when people asked us about when are we going to start building apps for the iPhone, well, as soon as the phone starts ringing, we'll start building. Well, they started ringing. No, it wasn't one phone either. It was all the phones all of a sudden popped up. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's close to impossible to decide which way to go as liquid as the market is right now. And talking about the market, where do you think we're going over the next 3 to 5 years? How do you think building business apps will change? Right now, we've talked a little bit about the problems of creating what's a smart app, if you will. Small enough, smart enough, available all the time, so on. How is that going to change? Is sensor, is context, is role, plays like that is going to be more integrated? Where can I see the development of business apps going over the next few years?
So I'm going to break this questions in two parts, in technology and business. So let's take the technology part. I really foresee a lot more enhancements being done to voice. Fat-fingered people like me can type. So
voice recognition. Okay, I got you.
Voice recognition, yes. And accent recognition too. I mean, your Swedish accent and my Indian accent.
You mean apropos nothing at all?
So the accent and the voice recognition has to improve, and I'm sure it's going to happen. In terms of business, what I feel is people are really not going to pay for business apps. They basically will expect it as part of the suite. If your business does not provide a mobile solution, people will stop buying it. I mean, right now people are willing to pay because of the valued ads. Over a period of time, the best organizations are going to embed free mobile solution and price it within their suite price. That's how I think things are going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in marketing. I mean, you can feel the pulse of people, and mobile is just getting crazy. I mean, everyone wants it. But when you tell them it's X dollars a license,
Yes.
they're scratching their heads.
Yeah, yeah. No, I noticed that it's been. Please come in and show us your mobility solution. We're really excited to see it. We're not going to pay you for it, but we would love to see it. And now they're taking some of that shimmer off it. Now they just want to pay us for a solution. And I know what you're saying, Will. I think there's a limited amount of time left before licensing specifically for mobile apps run out. But people are willing to invest in it, and they know where they want to go with it. There seems to be suddenly a really deep maturity on, or at least a pretension also of maturity of what people want to do with mobile apps, and they want it now, and they give it to everybody and deploy it across the whole company all in one fell swoop. So it's very interesting, because 2 years ago that was not the discussion we had.
So I think there's a reason for that, Alf. I think it's primarily, with BYOD. I mean, just rewind 5 years back. If you had a phone which you could use at work, it was because your company gave it to you. They spent whatever, $500 for the device, and maybe an additional $500 for the security, maintenance, IT, all that happy stuff. Now they don't pay a dime. It's your device.
Yeah.
Thanks to BYOD and MDM solutions, they're saving that money, and now they want you to work more using these productive apps. So if I was a business, I'd be extremely happy.
Well, yeah, I always said, instead of BYOD, my point was, if they insist on bringing these devices to work, let's leverage them. Let's do something with it. Like, it's your next business advantage. You put these apps on there, you change your process flows that involves it, rather than just do things as always. You have to change as a company. You have a huge boost, and it'll cost you hardly anything. But that's a different story altogether. Well, Pratik, it was really good having you here. A long time since I've seen you. We got to meet more often, and less digitally too. Next week, we'll take a week off for some spring holidays, and then we'll return in April. Very exciting series where we're going to interview 4 women in IT who will share their perspective, not only of about the products and the technology around it, but what it's like to work in a predominantly man world. Until then, take care and be safe. Bye-bye.